I never thought much about late-night driving before this happened. I'd done it hundreds of times. Long highways, empty roads, nothing but music and the sound of the engine. That night was no different. At least, not at first. I was driving back home after visiting family. It was already past 1 a.m., and I was on a long stretch of highway that cut straight through the desert. No towns, no buildings, just road and darkness. I remember thinking how quiet everything felt, almost peaceful. About 40 minutes into the drive, I noticed headlights behind me. At first, I didn't care. Another car on the road was actually kind of reassuring. Late at night, you don't like feeling completely alone out there. But after a while, I realized something felt off. The car behind me wasn't getting closer. It wasn't falling back either. It stayed at the exact same distance. I checked my mirror again. Same position, perfectly centered behind me. I slowed down a little, expecting them to pass. They didn't. I sped up slightly. They sped up too. That's when I started paying attention. There were 2 lanes, plenty of room to pass, clear road ahead, but the car never even drifted toward the other lane. Not once. It just stayed behind me. After about 10 minutes of this, I started feeling uncomfortable, not scared yet, just uneasy. I turned the music down and rolled my window open a crack, letting the cold air wake me up. I told myself I was tired. That's all it was. Then, my radio crackled. At first, I thought it was static, but it wasn't. It was a voice, low, calm, almost bored. It said, "Don't stop." The radio immediately went silent. No static, no music, nothing. My hands tightened around the steering wheel. I stared straight ahead, too afraid to even look in the mirror. After a few seconds, I finally checked. The headlights were still there, same distance, same position. I told myself, I imagined the voice, that I was exhausted, that it was just my brain playing tricks on me. But my heart was pounding now, and I couldn't calm it down. A few minutes later, my fuel light came on. I swore under my breath. I thought I had more time, but apparently not. Up ahead, I saw the faint glow of a gas station. It looked old, isolated, the kind of place you'd rather not stop at in the middle of the night. But I didn't have a choice. I slowed down and signaled to turn off the highway. The moment my car left the road, I checked the mirror. The car behind me didn't follow. It didn't slow down. It didn't turn. It just kept going straight and disappeared into the darkness. I sat there for a second, trying to calm my breathing. I told myself that was it, that I was safe now. I pulled into the gas station. The place was completely empty. No other cars, no clock inside. The lights buzzed overhead, and the air felt unnaturally still. While I was filling my tank, I kept glancing back at the highway, half expecting to see those headlights return. They never did. When I got back in my car, I just wanted to leave. I didn't even look around. I pulled straight back onto the highway and drove. For the rest of the drive, I didn't see another car, not in front of me, not behind me, just empty road. When I finally reached my hotel, it was almost sunrise. I was exhausted, but my mind wouldn't slow down. I remembered my dash cam. Part of me didn't want to check it, but another part of me needed to know if what I experienced was real. I sat on the edge of the bed and pulled up the footage. The video showed my car driving down the highway, the road, the darkness. Everything looked normal, but there was one problem. The headlights behind me never appeared. Not once. Not in a single frame. According to the footage, I had been alone on that road the entire time. I don't drive late at night anymore, and when I do, I never check my rearview mirror for too long. I used to trust GPS without thinking about it. If it told me to turn, I turned. If it said I'd arrived, I assumed I had. After this happened, I don't use GPS at night anymore. I was working overnight deliveries at the time. Nothing unusual. I'd been doing it for a few months and knew most of the routes pretty well. That night, though, I had a delivery in a part of the state I wasn't familiar with. Rural, mountain roads, spotty cell service. It was after 2 a.m. when I started heading out there. The road was narrow and surrounded by trees. No houses, no lights, just my headlights and whatever they happened to catch. Fog started rolling in not long after I left the main highway. At first, it was light. Then it got thicker. The kind that makes everything feel closer than it should be. I slowed down and focused on the road. I didn't want to miss a turn. That's when my GPS spoke. Turn left in 300 feet. I glanced at the screen. The map showed a left turn coming up. But when I looked back at the road, there was nothing there. Just trees, no side road, no driveway, nothing. I slowed down, thinking maybe I was just missing it. The GPS repeated itself. Turn left. I drove past where it said the turn should have been. Nothing happened for a moment. Then the screen went black. I thought it had lost signal. A second later, it turned back on. The route recalculated. That's when I noticed something that made my stomach drop. Where the arrival time should have been, it just said, arrival time, unknown. I laughed nervously and told myself it was a glitch. Technology messes up sometimes. That didn't mean anything was wrong. I kept driving. A few minutes later, the road started narrowing. The fog was so thick now that I couldn't see more than a few feet ahead. Then the road just ended. Not curved, not blocked. It ended. The asphalt stopped and turned into dirt and trees, like someone had given up halfway through building it. I stopped the car and stared straight ahead, trying to understand what I was looking at. I checked the GPS again. It was still on. Still confident, I put the car in reverse. That's when I noticed movement in the fog. Not fast, not obvious, just shapes, tall, still, standing just beyond where my headlights reached. I couldn't make out faces. I couldn't even be sure how many there were, but I knew I wasn't alone. My GPS spoke again. You have arrived. My heart started racing. I didn't think. I just pressed the accelerator. The car lurched backward, tires spinning as I turned and forced my way back down the road. Branches scraped along the sides of the car, and I didn't slow down until I hit pavement again. I didn't stop driving until the sky started to lighten. When I finally reported what happened, I was told there had never been a road where my GPS had taken me. No unfinished route, no dead end, nothing. Later that day, I checked my delivery log. The package was marked as delivered. Timestamp, 2:17 a.m. I quit that job not long after. And now, when my GPS tells me to turn somewhere unfamiliar at night, I don't. I've always been careful about locking my car doors. It's something I do without thinking. Get in, lock, drive. That night, it probably saved my life. I was driving home after a long shift at work. It was just before 1 a.m. and I took a rural road to avoid traffic. I'd driven that way plenty of times before. It was quiet but familiar. There were no streetlights, just my headlights cutting through the dark and the sound of the road under my tires. About 10 minutes in, I saw someone standing on the side of the road. It was a man, tall, thin. He wasn't waving. He wasn't trying to flag anyone down. He was just standing there, facing the road. I slowed down instinctively, then felt stupid for doing it. I told myself not to stop. I didn't know him, and there was nothing around for miles. As I passed him, I glanced to my right. He didn't turn his head. He didn't move at all. I remember thinking how strange that was. Most people would at least look at the car passing them. A minute or so later, my car made a sound. That soft chime you hear when a seatbelt isn't fastened. The passenger seatbelt warning light turned on. I laughed under my breath. I was alone. The seat was empty. I figured it was a sensor glitch. Still, I reached over and buckled the passenger seatbelt just to make the sound stop. That's when I noticed the smell. It was faint but unmistakable, like cold air and dirt. I glanced at the passenger seat. Still empty. I told myself I was tired, that my mind was playing tricks on me. I'd worked a long shift, after all. I put both hands back on the wheel and kept driving. A few seconds later, I felt it. The car felt heavier, not dramatically, just enough to notice. I turned my head. The man was sitting in the passenger seat. He was staring straight ahead, like he'd been there the whole time. His hands rested neatly in his lap. I couldn't move. I couldn't scream. My body just froze. His face looked wrong. Not injured, not distorted, just slightly off, like something pretending to be human and not quite getting it right. I slammed the brakes. The car came to a violent stop. When I looked again, the seat was empty. The door was still locked. The seatbelt was still buckled. I sat there shaking, trying to convince myself that it hadn't happened, that I imagined it, that exhaustion had finally caught up with me. I didn't check the passenger seat again. I drove the rest of the way home staring straight ahead, gripping the steering wheel so hard my hands hurt. I didn't turn on the radio. I didn't answer my phone. I just drove. When I got home, I sat in my car for a full minute before getting out. I didn't want to look inside again. The next morning, I checked my dash cam footage. At first, everything looked normal. Just an empty road. Me driving alone. Then, at exactly 12:48 a.m., something happened. The passenger seat dipped just slightly, like someone sitting down. There was nothing visible, no shadow, no movement, just the seat compressing and then returning to normal. I deleted the footage after that. I still lock my car doors, but now, before I start driving, I always check the passenger seat, even when I know I'm alone.